行こう。
ヒカリン、大丈夫？
はい、大丈夫なのです。ありがとうございますなのです。
よかった。
Episode 7 of Exploration Hero. This episode was a fantastic episode. Although there was no exploration of said dungeon, there was no Syl, there was no Lucy, this was still an awesome, awesome episode. And the interactions between Haruka and between the group, I thought were legitly funny. And the fact that everybody in the group, from Airi to Miku to Hikari, their names are so similar, but Airi, Hikari, Miku, the fact that all three of them had different interactions just during this outside setting of the dungeon with Kaito. I love how they all kind of realize that they're in love with Kaito. And I like that. I think I liked Airi's realization the best, because she was like, "Ugh, that's what it is," because she wanted to show off, okay? So at one point, they, during her tour of the academy, she's like, "Okay, let's hit the dojo," and she wanted to show off, but she was like, "Why do I want to show off? Like, what do I care?" And as she was showing off, she was like, hey, and they were like, "Ooh," and then Kaito was just like, "Yo, Irie, you look so good, you're so awesome," and she's like, she felt all good about it. She was like, "Oh, that's what it is." And I love how during the same time, Haruka is realizing that these three girls, they definitely have some feels for our boy Kaito. And he just showed off this episode. He saved the soccer ball with Miku. He saved Hikari from falling. He praised Airi. So, like, he was showing off this episode. And it really showed how much he's grown based on episode 1 with him and the spray cans with the slimes, all the way now to episode 7, where he's developed physically. He's developed like his how do you call it? He's developed his vitality. He's developed his endurance. He's developed his strength. He's developed like all these things that he's been developing within the dungeon have come outside with him of the dungeon. So I think that was a really cool thing to see, not only from all the different strength, or all the different how do you say it? I'm losing my words today. It was interesting seeing all the major growth that he's had over the season, and that growth was definitely visibly seen by Haruka. It was seen by the three girls in his party, and it was noticed by himself, which I think is a really cool thing. The other awesome thing about this episode too is when Haruka and Kaito left to go get drinks or whatever for their group, because they were having a group lunch. The boys, his friends, they sat down with Airi, with Miku, and Hikari, and they were talking about the dungeon. And the show has finally showed me, or told me, something I've been wondering for a while. It looks like the things that kind of go on within the dungeon can't be taken out of the dungeon. You have to kind of like, weapons and certain things that you have within the dungeon have to kind of be kept within this radius. Also, things that you would normally use in the dungeon, apparently they have like a 3-kilometer distance. So they mostly build a lot of things within a 3-kilometer radius around the dungeon, because if you begin to take things like potions out of the dungeon, they lose their potency. Not that they're completely useless, but they're mostly just like, they're meant to be used within the dungeon, or within the confinements of this distance to the dungeon. So Kaito's friends were talking about how they, like, he tried to use a potion when he was like, he got, I don't know, a cut or something in soccer, and the potion basically was like almost like useless. And I was like, okay, that's a really cool little tidbit to know about. Is like, okay, 3 kilometers, and let's see. Let me just see here for our folks that are in the States like me. So 3 kilometers is about 1.86, so almost 2 miles from the dungeon. So you have like a 2-mile radius. So that's why they have a lot of like attractions and a lot of things that are within the dungeon's perimeter, because they're able to have dungeon oriented things and attractions and stuff that happen in the dungeon outside of that dungeon within that perimeter. And then once they pass that certain distance, it pretty much just becomes a moot point. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to learn as well too. Outside of that, I think the rest of the episode just did well for Haruka and Kaito to get closer together. I think Haruka finally found out that he has been exploring the dungeon. I don't quite like how they didn't actually have him tell her in any way. He just kind of let it slip and then just kind of kept moving forward, because the whole season so far that he's been hiding, you know, he didn't say, oh, I've been taking dance classes, you know? So it's been a kind of an annoying trope. And this episode, it finally got smashed, but they didn't really like, how do you say it? They didn't really like acknowledge it. He just like, oh yeah, okay, I've been in a dungeon and these are my party members. And she's like, ooh, you know, and I did find it funny every time that, you know, like it would turn cold and winter and ice around her. Those were legitimately, I thought were really funny moments. But I just don't like how the truth and information about him exploring the dungeon finally came out, but then they didn't really acknowledge the fact that it came out. I was like, that's kind of a crappy thing to do for us as the viewers who have been constantly, like, this trope has come over again and again where they keep hiding the dungeon from this Haruka girl, but then it finally comes out and then it's just, they just kind of keep moving forward. It's like, well, you know, it kind of feels crappy for your viewers. So that's really the only thing I didn't like about this episode. Otherwise, I thought it was a fantastic episode. I laughed a lot. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you, my friends, next weekend. Have a good one. Peace.